Hey, I'm Jake, and today we're going to learn about prop design. This is a prop design course from svslearn.com, and I'm excited to teach you what I know. Prop and environment designer for several years with Blue Sky Studios. I've done a dozen children's books, comic books, things like that, and so all of that involves designing props. What is a prop? Prop is anything a character interacts with or holds. It's anything that is not a character or an environment in a story, okay? You can read the Wikipedia entry on prop, but basically the history of this is it comes from theater, and it was the actual property of the when theaters were communally owned by the actors. They would bring their own property to use in the plays, and so that's why it got that word property. And then as film studios were established, if there was a sword or a chair or something like that that was used in a film, it was the property of the studio, not something that you could just take home with you when you're done, right? And so that name has just kind of gone on through the ages, and now we just call things that aren't a character and they aren't the environment that the character interacts with a prop. And sometimes that could be a vehicle, although vehicle design is something in and of itself. It's like this blur between prop and environment because the character is inside of it. But typically what we're going to talk about and what we're going to go through today is things that characters are directly interacting with or using, holding, sitting on, things like that. All right, so there's three basic categories to prop design. There's usables, there's consumables, and there are garnish. All right, I'm going to give you examples of each of those. A usable is anything that a character uses. They hold, they sit in it, it's some sort of object that they're using to accomplish a task. A consumable is something that they eat or that they spend. It could be fuel, it could be a hamburger, could be water, something like that. And then a garnish it could be both of those same sort of things. It could be like a tool, like a shovel or a hammer or a sword. But a garnish is something that's in the background. So oftentimes these are things that are going to be hanging on a wall or sitting on a bookshelf, or it's going to be foliage, plants, trees, things like that. And so all of these things require attention, they require thought, they require design thinking and how they relate to the character and how they're going to harmonize with the character and the environment, how they're going to contrast against those things if they need to have more attention brought to them. But those are the three basic categories, and what we're going to be working on today is going through learning how to design specific things that characters are either going to use or sit in. We're not going to spend too much time on food. We're not going to spend too much time on foliage and things like that. We're going to focus our time on usables. Prop design is important because we're storytellers, human beings, right? We love stories. We learn through stories. We tell each other stories. When we see each other, you wouldn't believe what happened to me, right? That's how we experience the world and the life around us, is we're always framing it through a story. What's that person's, what is this person going through, or what am I going through, and how am I going to accomplish the things that I need to accomplish? And so whether you're watching a movie or you're reading a comic book or you are reading a children's book, attending a play, anything like that, your mind and your brain is already, it's predisposed, it's like trained to follow characters through stories and to empathize with a character and what's going to happen to them and how they're going to get out of the situation that they're in. Props are there to support all of that. If time and attention and thought isn't given to the prop design, to the things that the characters interact with, it detracts from the experience of the story. Even if you're doing something as simple as a single illustration, if you don't give thought and care to the things that the character is wearing, that they're holding, that they're sitting in, it draws. I think it can pull you out of the dream, of seeing and thinking about what that character is going through. So the purpose of this course is to teach you how to make good props. I'm going to give you a step-by-step process on how to design a prop, how to think about what goes into designing this prop, an approach to making this prop. And the goal is that your props are going to be things that are like a net benefit to the stories that you create, to the point that not that they draw attention away from the characters, but they can become characters in and of themselves. You think about going back to the lightsabers in Star Wars. Those things are so cool. It's such an amazing design and such a cool design that they actually are. You can't think of Star Wars without lightsabers, right? So I don't know. Let's do this. Let's get started, and hope we have a good time. First step here is concept. This is what we're going to talk about first. And concept is figuring out, what is this prop going to be? And we know if it's going to be a chair or a lamp or a book or something like that, but what beyond that? What is, what does it feel like? Is it a thick book? Is it a fluffy chair? Is it a thin chair? What does a character need from this prop? And so there's some questions to ask yourself about this, and let's go through those one by one. Questions you need to answer about your prop. Number one, who made this and who is it for? Thinking about who made it, if it was made by a character, or who is it for, helps you decide what size the prop needs to be. If it is something that specifically goes with the character, it tells you what style the prop's going to be. What does this do? What does the prop do? If it's just something that sits in the background and doesn't do anything, you need to know that. If it is something that's going to be used or turn on or open up, then you need to design a prop that is able to do those sorts of things. Where would you find this prop? Think about, is this prop going to be in the foreground? Is it going to be in the background? If it's going to be in the foreground, then you're going to want to think about details that you're going to add to it that would be visible from the foreground. If it's in the background, you don't need to worry about as much detail. Also, where would you find this? A broader question there is, what's the time or the place or the genre that this particular prop is set in? So be thinking about that. A lamp designed in the 1980s is going to look different from a lamp designed in the 1880s. And that goes to the next question: when was it made? Knowing when it was made can inform you about what some design choices that you should make with the prop. Why was it made? Not all these questions apply to every prop, but that's a good question to ask, is why would a character have made this particular prop? What's the purpose that it serves? Was it, if it's a crate, what does the crate carry? Why is there a crate? Why even is there a crate? If it's a barrel, if it's a chair, why was it made? Was it there for comfort, or was it there just to be a design element? And then lastly, how was it made? Thinking about how the prop was made can help you come up with some design elements to it that you might not normally think of if you're not thinking of the manufacture of it. So is it stitched together? Is it welded together? Is it hammered together? Is it duct taped together? Those are all questions that you should be asking yourself before going into designing this thing. So these are the questions that I'm thinking of as I'm designing, as I'm working on stuff. And I want to show you a couple of prop designs that I did for Ice Age. This is an Ice Age Christmas special. And so I want to show you this particular prop. This is a design of a stuffed toy, and the toys exist in prehistoric Ice Age time period, right? So it can't look like it was manufactured, can't look like it was made by humans. What would a toy look like that was made by animals? And so this is my design, and it's supposed to feel a little archaic, but part of my job was to figure out exactly how this design was made. And I'm already answering some of these questions. The time period is Ice Age. The purpose for it, it's a toy for a child or a child animal. It's supposed to be made not by humans, not look to be made by humans. These are all questions that was answered to me in the design brief and that I'm thinking of as I'm going through and designing this character. And if you look in this next image right here, this is the design process. So the idea was that it was just a bunch of sticks and twigs wrapped together with some sort of binding element. It could be grass, it could be a reed of some sort, but then it's dipped into sap, tree sap, and then a bag of fur or grass clippings. I was thinking fur is dumped on it, and all the fur sticks on it, and then the sticks and stones and like seed shells or something is added to it to create fingers, toes, and a face. And so this all went into the design process of this character here. Now you don't have to do this every time, but this was actually going to be shown in the animated short. They wanted to show the process by which these things were made, but these are the kinds of things I'm thinking of as I'm designing props. So you could see here, here's another prop. These are nesting acorns. You could see here, this is mistletoe. And what I was thinking, just to make it easier, this is a prop specifically designed for a film, and simplifying the modeling process is something I'm also thinking of. So how can I come up with a design that if it's flipped the other way, it doesn't mirror both sides too exactly? So, and then what are the basic elements so they don't have to model 24 different leaves. They can just model 3 different leaves and repurpose them. So those are some other thought processes that are going into this thinking up stage, this concepting stage. Yeah, you can see here, this is a hammer. Here's the size relationship to Santa. But this hammer, just thinking, how was it made? It would be 2 pieces of wood chopped in a certain or cut in a certain way, one thick piece of wood, one thin piece of wood. But I'm also going in there and I'm adding little divots and scars in it to make it look like it has been used and it's been split from use and things like that. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about and looking at and thinking about when I'm designing props, and some of the questions I'm asking myself. And this list is super handy when you sit down to do any sort of prop design. Just go through, answer these questions, answer as many of them as you can, and it's going to definitely affect how you design this prop. Instead of just going with, if you're doing something as generic as designing a bouncy ball, still you could go through this and there might be one answer to one of these questions that could give you just the right kind of, spark just the right amount of creativity to make it from a normal bouncy ball to something that's a little bit more memorable. If you think about Pixar's bouncy ball that's shown up in every one of their films, it could have been a red ball, but some smart artist at Pixar said, let's put a star on it and a circle on it. And now it becomes something a little bit more iconic, so that when you see it, you think, oh, that's the Pixar ball. And that's just something simple like a ball. This applies to more complex things like, a chair or a couch that your character is going to sit on, or a throne that the king in your story is going to sit on. All of these questions can help answer that and make it even better. Okay, the next step, once you've got this idea of what this prop is going to be and what it needs to be, you gather reference. And I can't stress this enough. Nobody creates in a vacuum. I use reference all the time. Professionals use reference all the time. It's the perfect way to use what is around you to make something new. Okay, so here's how I gather reference. I do three things. There's photo reference, that just photos you go out and get yourself. There's online reference from what other artists have already created, and you can use that and feed off of that. It's not cheating. It's cheating if you copy the exact same design and you call it yourselves. But if you take a design that someone else has done and you take another design and you combine them together and you mix it with something that you're thinking would be cool to add to it, that is totally fair game, and it's something that professional artists do all the time. So there's photos, there's visual, or there's artist reference, and then there's just life reference. You could look at the chairs around you in your life. If you're designing a chair, you could look at the lamps around you in your life if you're designing lamps. Go to a museum and go look at all the different objects in a museum and use that as reference. So those are your three options. What I'm going to do today is show you how I gather reference. I'm going to design a chair, and this is a chair for Skull Chaser. He's my character, comic book character that I've come up with. Actually, I've only done one comic with him, but I have big plans for this character. He's going to be huge, I tell you. And so we're going to design Skull Chaser's chair. What does the chair look like in his living quarters? And so I need to get reference. Here's how I do it. I have Pinterest and I have ArtStation, and I'm going to look between these two. There's also DeviantArt, if you know what that is. These are all three main, I would say, like art sharing websites that you can look at to find different art and different artists. And on my Pinterest board, there was a while there where I just devoted half an hour every day to just surfing Pinterest and looking at cool art and, oh, this would be fun, I'll put this in this folder. And I kind of do that on ArtStation as well. Any art that I think is cool and I think, oh, I want to remember that and I want to use that as reference, I'll put that in my ArtStation favorites. You can see here I have different collections. I have characters, I have creatures, I have dinosaurs, I have effects. Here I have a prop section. Let's see what's in the prop section, if there's any chairs in there. No, we don't have any chairs, but we do have this thing. And there's some elements in this guy's legs that I might want to use for Skull Chaser. So what I can do is save image, and I've got a folder already saved out called reference. I'm just going to put that in there. And I see this here. This is also a cool design. I'm going to save this image in my reference folder. And where you're looking at this doesn't look anything like a chair, but there are elements here that I think could be in a futuristic sci-fi chair. So I'm going to use that. And let's go to Pinterest. Do I have a props? I forget if I have a props section in Pinterest. No, but I have ground forces, ships and boats, weapons, machines, engines, and tech. There might be something in there that I could look at and use for reference for Skull Chaser. I'm just searching through these things to try and find like a vibe that I like, that feels futuristic, retro, sci-fi. And I'm not really feeling any of this. So let's get out of here and let's go to, there's another one, industrial design. And I think there might be something cool in here. Ooh, this is neat. I have no idea what that is. It looks, it's like a sink. So I'm going to save this image in here. And what's cool about Pinterest, here's some more. We'll click on that and see where that takes us. Cleverly hidden furniture. Oh, so now we're getting into some areas where some of these things could be very applicable to what I want to do. Look at these chairs. Look at that desk thing. I'm going to save that and use that. This thing is cool. I already saved that one. Oh, but I like how the fridge opens up there. So I'm going to save that. Who knows if that's going to come in handy. And this is just how I go about gather referencing. I mean, there's nothing fancy to it. It's basically being some sort of a detective, and you're following leads. And if something looks interesting, you kind of see where it goes and see what other kind of things are gonna help inspire you. Okay, so let's go back to my Pinterest board, see what else I've saved on there. This is cool. I think there's something here that could be a reference. Save image. And I'm gonna find one other piece here. Oh, look at, here we got an actual chair. I think I saved this pin for the computer TV device she's on, but the chair is really cool. So let's save that image there. And just want to double check. Oh, wow. Okay. This is our, like somebody's designed something that's close to what I want to do. So we're going to put that in there. And I saw another chair right beside it that looked cool too. We're going to save this one as well. All right. And you could, I mean, you could do this forever. You could go on and on and on. There's so many, oh, okay. 2 more here. I'm going to put this in my folder. It's tempting to spend too much time doing this. I could spend an hour just surfing Pinterest and looking at stuff. And the reason I like Pinterest over someplace like ArtStation or DeviantArt is because so many people post photos of things. It's not just art, but it's so many other things as well. Okay, this is the last one, I swear. And so you get a broader spectrum of ideas from Pinterest because there's just so many more things on there. Anything else here before we move on? I think one thing, okay, so this isn't a chair, obviously. This is a speaker, cool design speaker, where they've cut away the exterior to show us what the interior looks like. And I think this would be cool to have part of his chair be super technical and the other part be like smooth and designed. So I'm going to use this and save that image in there as well. And now you can see here I have my my folder. I'm just going to switch it to this view. And there's lots of ideas here. There's plenty of stuff for me to go from and to put together an idea of what it is I want to do to design this futuristic looking chair for my Skull Chaser comic. Okay, that is very much in a nutshell how I gather reference. And I wanted to show this to you just so that, number one, it's totally cool. And if there's any sort of stigma around gathering reference and using reference, I wanted to get rid of that in your mind. But if you're already there, I just want to show you how I find things and how little rabbit trails can lead me into interesting places. So let's move on. So we're going to design props in this course, and that's part of the way that you're going to learn is actually doing exercises where you design some props. And in this course, I'm going to show you how I build out a series of props, but we're going to focus specifically on one prop as we go through it, and then we'll build more at the end. And it's going to be like a chair with a side table with a lamp, those types of things, and how they all come together. And what I'm going to do is design a chair, and then later I will work around that, design other things. But what you're going to do is you're going to design a lamp. That's going to be your assignment. Get into that. Your first assignment is going to be to collect reference, just the way that I showed you. And I don't want you to spend more than 30 minutes collecting reference, because you could spend hours doing this and go down rabbit holes and find things. 20 to 30 minutes, just spend looking for reference and finding things that are going to influence the design of the lamp that you're going to be designing. Now, if you have a story in mind already, something that you've been wanting to create, go ahead and use this as an opportunity to design something in that world. If you don't have something like that, then I'm going to leave this open to you. You can come up with whatever you want. Just to throw out some ideas, you could design, maybe this story takes place in the 1930s, and this would be, in the room of some sort of, railway billionaire or something like that. And what would the lamp that sits on their desk look like? There's one idea. Or maybe this is the Stone Age, and it's set to look like a modern day version of the Stone Age. So you still have a chair and you still have almost like the Flintstones or something like that. What would the lamp look like in that situation? Or maybe it's the future. Maybe it's a futuristic scenario. What would a lamp look like, 100 years from now, or in a Star Wars universe, or in a Star Trek universe, something like that? What would a fantasy situation look like? So there's all different ways you can go with this. Be creative. I want you to be a little bit creative in this area. If the kinds of things that you want in your portfolio and you want to draw is not that extreme, and it's more, this is the lamp in a child's playroom, or this is a lamp in a normal suburban house, go for it. Do that as well, but bring to it a little bit of style as well. To help you figure out exactly where you want to be with this and what you want to do with this design, go through those questions that I talked about in the last video. Ask yourself those questions and see, and that'll help you flesh out exactly what it is you want to design and what kind of reference you're going to want to pull. Your reference doesn't have to be photos of lamps either. It could just be things that inspire what you want the lamp to look like. So, if you get stuck and you haven't found a ton of pictures of lamps, don't worry. Go look at other things. You could base the design off of a 1950s automobile. You could base the design of your lamp off of 1930s architecture or something like that. But the more creative you are in your reference gathering, sometimes the more creative your designs are going to be. If you need a little help finding things to work off of and to work from, you're more than welcome to use my Pinterest page and look at what I've pinned there. You can use the favorites that I have on my ArtStation page, and you're welcome to go through all that. All right, when you're done, come back and we'll go on to the next video. Good luck. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about now in this next section, you've got your reference all figured out. We're going to want to start drawing, but before we get into drawing, I want to talk about some principles of design, because whether you're designing a character, or you're designing an environment, or you're designing a prop, these principles of design apply to what it is you're going to be creating. And so let's get right into it. The first thing is shape. Shape is probably the basic, most symbolic way I want you to be thinking about your prop. What is the basic shape of it? If you could narrow down your prop to one shape, what shape would that be? Okay. The three basic shapes are square, triangle, circle. Every design you come up with can fall under these three basic categories, and they all have the dimensional counterpart as well. And what that counterpart is the cube, the pyramid, and the sphere. I could throw in cylinder as well. Cylinder is another basic shape, but cylinder is the combination of sphere and cube put together, and cone is a combination of sphere and pyramid put together. So those are like secondary shapes. So almost like the primary colors. These are the primary shapes. And the reason I want you to be thinking of these primary shapes is because it makes your design process so much simpler, and it gives you stronger designs, okay? So these three primary shapes, when applied to, say, something like trees, will give you, if you think about a tree that's very cubish and firm, it's going to be like a thick-trunked oak. And you could see this tree, this oak tree, is using the shape language of cubes to get the idea across that this is a firm tree. Okay, you go to the next one, this pine tree, and it's made up of triangles. It's sharp, it's pointy. It's not as bulky, and so therefore it's got this feeling like it's a little bit more wispier or a little bit more dynamic as well. And then we have this palm tree, which has curves in it. The main bulk of the tree is a big circle. Even the trunk leading up to it has a curve to it, implying that it's taking on these round circular shapes. And this is a little bit more comforting and inviting. Each one of these shapes have like a psychological, gives you like a psychological advantage to your design. When you use squares, when you use triangles, when you use circles, we automatically think of things that are related to those as well in nature, right? So what is cubular? Is that a word? What has in nature in common with cubes? And that would be things like rocks. And if you look at animals, big squarish animals are going to be like cows or livestock, or the larger, like elephants or rhinoceroses, those types of things. They all have this firmness about them. And so if you use that as your shape language, the thing that you're designing for is going to be feel a lot more firm and established. Likewise, in nature, when we see sharp things, broken glass, sharp rocks, teeth, sharks with their pointy fins, all those imply dynamic movement, but also danger, right? So if you wanted to design something that was dangerous looking, you would probably use more triangular shapes. And then what's round in nature? Babies are round, puppies are round, and clouds are puffy and soft. Fruit, which is like you want to grab it and eat it and put it in you, is all round. And so we're predisposed to think of round things as things to protect and to take care of and to conserve. And so if you want to have those feelings go along with your design, then you're going to use more round shapes. So these are trees, but let's see, what about man-made objects? So here's chairs. You can see here, I want you to look at these three chairs and think about what is the type of character that this chair belongs to. Who would sit in this chair, this square chair? It might be the chair of like a lawyer or an accountant, right? Someone who's very firm by the numbers, immovable with what they believe in or what they're trying to accomplish. Something sharp and pointy like this, you might see this, it could be like the chair of, a space, like a Flash Gordon type, or maybe like a Klingon or something like that. It's these triangular shapes are very, at least the way that I've drawn it here, is a little bit more futuristic, but something dynamic, something a little bit more exploratory, I guess. And then you go to this round chair. It's all soft. There's curves. There's soft features to it. You could see perhaps like an old grandpa or grandma sitting in it, or this would be the kind of chair that you'd want to snuggle up and read a book in. And it's because these chairs have these types of shapes to them. They're going to be, give you those feelings about them. So you can use this to your advantage, right? So if you want to set up expectations, or I guess give the people who are viewing the thing that you're creating some sort of reason to understand your character better or to trust your character, you could design their world and things that are associated with that character in a way that matches them or that harmonizes with them. On the other flip side, you could throw them off by contrasting it. What if you put a bad guy who was made up with all these angular shapes, but put them in a cozy chair? What would that tell the audience? What would they think? Oh, maybe this character has a soft heart, even though their exterior looks very formidable and aggressive. There's one other thing I want to talk about, and that's symbols versus reality. And when you are building up these designs and thinking of designs, think of them again as what's the basic symbol of what represents the shape? What's the 3D version of that? And then as you break it down into more complex shapes, are you keeping that symbol still evident in the design of the chair, right? So I could go even further with the design of this chair, and I could round off edges to it. I could taper different parts of it, but then it would fall away from what it really is meant to be, which is a chair for a more square, firm type of character. So that's something to remember as you're designing. Is you start with basic shapes, thinking of basic shapes, and then work your way to more complex shapes. And I would use that as like a foundation or a fundamental of your design, your thinking in design. Okay. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is proportions and how important proportion is to design. You've got the shapes, but how do you use those shapes to create a more appealing and more dynamic design using those shapes? And one thing to keep in mind is proportions. Okay, so the first thing I want you to look at here are these two squares, and I've divided one of these squares in half, and I've divided one of these squares into thirds. Okay, whenever you can, think of thirds, maybe even fifths. And the reason I think of that is so often I see designs where they're evenly divided. The shapes are 50% of the shapes here, 50% of the shape is there. And what it does is it creates a sort of a blah, balanced, expected, almost generic or basic design. When you lean one direction into the thirds, you're going to have much more dynamic play of shape, because you have a dominant shape and you have these subordinate shapes that support that dominant shape. And so your eye is attracted to the contrast between those two shapes, and it gives it a feeling of this is an object that, number one, has been designed, there's some care given to the design of it, but number two, it's an object that looks intriguing because perhaps the shapes are either appealing the way they're organized or unexpected the way they're unorganized, the way they are organized. Okay, so look at this chair. This chair has been designed with 50-50 proportions. This square is equivalent to the length of the legs. The bottom of the chair is sort of matching, even though it's in perspective, the same degree of shape that the back of the chair is. And compare that to these two chairs, which have been designed with the rule of thirds in mind. Okay, so if you look at this chair, 50-50, these two chairs, thirds, and when you compare them to each other, one of these just has a lot, or these two I feel just have a lot more appeal to them than this chair, which is pretty straightforward design. Now, all of these rules are put into place to help make things more interesting, but also you can break rules as long as you know what you're breaking. So if you wanted to design a environment that the characters walk into and maybe they feel a little unease or they feel bored in this environment, then everything would match up perfectly proportion-wise, like equal proportions to everything, instead of extreme proportions and subordinate shapes to those bigger shapes, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Next, I want to show you these chairs, these 3 chairs, going back to our cube chair. And this is me taking the same shapes that that we used before, the same exact shapes that made up this chair, but I'm pushing the proportions. So this one, I'm making the bottom part of it squattier and short, and the top part of it longer, reaching up into the, towards the ceiling. This one is, you can see that the arms are much taller and higher, and the back of it is shorter. This one, it's a much wider chair. So you can see here, like, think about when you're looking at these things, you can start to imagine which kind of character would sit in these things. It doesn't mean that the character has a different personality, but perhaps the character has different shapes to it. So you want to design something in thinking what character is going to use this object, what would be a chair that harmonizes with them or contrasts with them. I'm going to get into harmony and contrast a little bit later, dig into that a little bit deeper, but I want to talk about it with these as well. The other thing I want to talk about too is the 70-30 rule. So if you take a square and you divide it into 25 squares, or essentially 100 squares, 70% of those squares is going to be uncolored, 30% are going to be colored. And this is a symbol of how I want you to think about the 30-70 rule. And what that is that 70% of the design and the space within a design of an object, 70% is going to lean one direction, 30% is going to lean the other direction. Let me show you examples so you get exactly what I'm talking about. Here we have a hammer. This is like a war hammer of some kind. And you can see here, if you look in this shape here of the hammer, this metal part, you could see here that 70% of this is just blank, empty space. 30% is lines of dents and cracks and wrinkles. If you look at the hammer, 70% of it is just wood. 30% is like these metal rivets that are holding the wood together. And overall, if you look at this hammer, 70% of it is hammer head, 30% is handle. And so if you just kind of think of that, it's almost like a rule of thirds sort of application, but it helps me think of it that 70-30. It just makes your designs more appealing, more visually like attractive. Look at this lamp as well. Now you can see I did divide this lamp into 50-50. It's sort of 50%. If you were to draw a line next to it, the fraction would be 50% is lampshade, 50% is the part holding up the lampshade. What's that called? I can't even think. I'm sure it's got a name for it. But the 70-30 rule is the bulk of this lamp design is 70% this lampshade, and 70% of this lampshade is blank, empty space. 30% of it is these little these design elements added to it. And same down here, 70% of this part is blank space, 30% is design decoration on it. And so I think also too, you've got like well, I'll get into contrast of shape a little bit later, but this is just another example of if I were to design a lamp, I would have the decoration of it favor either it's going to be 70% decorated and 30% blank, or 30% decorated and 70% blank. Here we have a jet pack or a rocket pack. This isn't a jet, there's no jet. It's just straight up rocket pack. And this is also following the proportions of 70-30. So 30% of this design is technical area, 70% is open resting space for your eye to rest. And then if you look at the shapes as well, 70% is a bigger shape, 30% is a smaller shape. Okay, yeah, okay, so that's what we wanted to talk about with proportions. Harmony and contrast. Harmony is when design or shapes and design elements may not repeat each other. They could repeat each other, but they go well with each other. So if you think in music, harmony is, even though the notes are different, the alto note and the soprano note, tenor, the bass, even though they all have different lines to them or notes to them, when they play together, they sound better together. And visually, you want to have visual harmony. So you want to have triangles, you want to have squares, you want to have circles working with each other, almost mirroring each other, but because they're different shapes, it still has design. There's something that captures your mind and your eyes' attention to them because they're different to it. So that's harmony. Contrast is when these shapes are so different from each other that it also creates visual interestingness to it. So the simplest way to put it would be to look at these triangles and squares are all harmonizing with each other. For every triangle, there's a square. Contrast would be, we have triangles and squares, but we also have small triangles and big triangles, small squares and big squares, small triangles and big triangles. Got it? How do you put these together in design? Let's go back to our rocket path. And what you can see here is harmony in that I have these elements here, this vent system, and it shows up again over here. But this time it's smaller. And this links these two design elements together. You can also see that the overall shape of the front of the rocket pack and this nozzle out here where the fire comes out, where the propulsion comes out, they harmonize with each other as well. And they also contrast in that this one's so big and this one's so small. Looking at the lamp, we also have harmony in that this shape up here harmonizes with this shape down here. They're not exactly the same, but they have some of the same curvature to them. But then there's contrast between these thin shapes and this wider, bigger shape of the lamp as well. And then in this chair here, we've got harmony where these little buttons that hold the padding in, I guess that's how chairs work. They're harmonizing with the bigger ones here in the handles. And then we also have a harmony here in that we've got these rounder shapes that are also seen up here. There's a roundness to everything. Contrast in that we have this bigger back with this smaller bottom size, right? Contrast in size with how big these bigger pieces are versus how small these smaller pieces are. This is all stuff that you might feel a little overwhelmed to remember this as you're designing, but trust your gut. Your eyes have been seeing this kind of stuff since you were little, since you've been looking at anything, since your eyes have been working, right? And you're going to know when things are working and when things are not working by how, I guess, satisfied and happy you are with the design. If your gut is telling you, oh, not quite there yet, look for, where is my contrast happening? Where is my harmony happening? And those are some of the things I want you to think about in design. So what do we talk about? In design, we have shape, we have the basic shapes, then we have the proportions of those shapes, and then we have the contrast and the harmony of those shapes and those design elements. So all that comes together. Be thinking of that. And let's move on to the next section here where we're going to actually start drawing. All right, let's get down to drawing. Before I actually demo drawing, this is the, I guess the evolution your drawings are going to take, the framework in which I do design. Not for every design, but for any design that requires any amount of design thinking to go with it if I don't already have the design in my mind. So first, just to run you through it, we're going to do silhouettes first. We're going to move into thumbnail drawings or thumbnail sketches, and then detailed sketches. And those are the first steps before we get to later, more polished steps. All right, so let's talk about these first. What is a silhouette drawing? A silhouette is an exercise and also a way that I go about designing things where it strips away all detail and it helps me focus on just the shape, the basic shapes, okay? So here's an example of doing silhouette drawings. You can see here, these are just very simple, basic shape drawings. There's almost no detail added to them. Anything that is there is there on purpose. There's no extraneous stuff, right? And the way that you do these is, if you're doing them on paper, get a Sharpie marker or get some sort of marker with a blunt tip, because it'll force you not to do detail. If you're doing them digitally, just use a sharp round circle. And what is going to force you to do is not spend too much time on any of these designs, because you can't get detail in there with such a round, thick drawing tip to your pencil. Okay, and when you're doing these, all it takes is just thinking about the basic shapes and not spending too much time on each one and not putting too much detail on each one, like I said. There's like a rule that I have, and that's the rule of 20. And what that means is I really don't find a design until I've done 20 of them. Sometimes it takes 20 to get to where you're not, I guess you're thinking so far outside of your head, you get so bored with it that anything goes, and that's when like really magical like design stuff happens. I'm not going to do 20 here, but I just wanted to show you, this is about how much time you want to spend on these. If you're doing lamps for your assignment, which is what you are going to be doing, you're just going to go in there, you're going to do something like that. You're going to do, what would it look like with a tall one? What would it look like with a round bottom? Those types of things, okay? But you can see here with these, I'm exploring proportion, I'm exploring shape, and the reason for this too is like you can plow through a bunch of designs without spending a lot of time, taking a lot of time. It's just a fast way to get more to the point of what you're drawing. So that's step one. Step two is thumbnail sketches. Once you've got your 20, 30 drawings, your silhouette drawings done, pick 3 to 5 of those that you like the best and start doing thumbnails of those. And this is what a thumbnail sketch is. It's basically, I picked this design right here, and I'm doing thumbnails off of that. And basically what you can do is get a sharper tipped either pencil or if you're doing digitally, just a sharper tipped brush. And then you go in, you start adding a little bit more detail to it. So in this one, I gave some design elements to the bottom of the armrests. I added some dots to the back rest. And then I figured out a little bit more fine what's going on with the wheels down there. This is just a way to like nail down these designs even further. Okay, you're working your way from simple to complex. Okay, once that's done, you're going to do the detailed sketch, and this is taking one of your thumbnail sketches. You've done 3 to 5 of them, and then you're going to do this detailed sketch, which is a little bit more detail. It's not your like final drawing, but it's got enough in there that if you inked over the top of it, if you colored it, it would look nice and polished. So You're going to do a detail sketch that, that shows specifically how you want to render it when it's done. So in this one, you can see here, it's going to be bigger. It's going to be 3-4 times as big as your thumbnail sketches and as your bigger than your silhouettes. Maybe not 4 times, let's say at most 3 times, but you could just double the size of it. Just big enough that you could fit detail in there. And then you could go in there and you could see here, like at this stage, I just did little round dots for these extra design elements. But at the detail sketch, I decided, oh, they should have a sharper edge on them. You could see, I'm going to zoom in there. You can see here, like we're going to have a sharp edge there, a sharp edge down here, and a sharp edge along the wheels at the bottom there. And this is harmony, design harmony. So you can see how it harmonizes. I've got these sharp points all sort of matching, but then there's also contrast. These ones are bigger, these ones are smaller. There's also contrast in shape too, where we have all these harder triangular edges contrasted against this rounder shape. So that's how, at that stage, you're also thinking harmony and contrast. The earlier stages, you're more thinking shape and proportion. And they all should come together to make like a really good design. All right, now let's move into my my demo where I start to walk you through how I would do silhouette, thumbnail sketches, and detailed sketch of Skull Chaser's chair. Okay, let's start drawing. What I have here already on my document is my reference that I've all put all on one page. I'm just going to turn this on and off as needed to look at it, but mostly I want to just kind of go by gut. Although it's good to just, you could have this open in another page, you could print it out and pin it in front of you. Whatever you need to get your design juices flowing. But this is kind of the feeling I want to go for design. So first things first, let's do 20 different silhouettes. See if we can't find something that would fit Skull Chaser. And so what I'm thinking here is this is Skull Chaser's living quarters. What does he want to sit in to, you know, at the end of the day, at the end of bounty hunting, what does he come home to? And he just wants to like chill in. I'm going to make this a little bit fatter. That's kind of cool. This is just one of those things where like, at this stage, there really is no wrong answers, right? Even if something isn't what you could clearly, you don't want it. If it's something you clearly don't want, you can check it off like, oh, I don't want to go there. I'm going to go in here and just erase out a section here, and that just kind of implies that these are the other arms that are sticking out of the side of it. Okay, I'm thinking Skull Chaser has this sort of round head. Then he has this body with like little angles on it, with knobby knees and knobby elbows. And there's these angles to him. So it might be good to have some of those elements in the design of this chair. Which is why I keep going angular with it. But maybe that doesn't look as comfortable. See, even this one, it's got too much detail added to it already. But I guess you can add more detail even if you're just keeping it simple. Okay, let's look at my reference again. Um, okay, something here. These are like broken up shapes. I really like these, but these are like broken up shapes. So let's, and I like how it's broken in there as well. So I've been sort of going with this one piece type of thing. So let's break up the shape here a little bit. Oh, that's interesting. See, if you're going into this, a lot of times, and I've seen this with assistants who've worked with me and students that I've worked with, excuse me, it's when they're designing, they just jump right into the final design. And they're designing big and they're taking over the, the whole paper. And the design already has like so many problems with it that they haven't thought through on the shape level, thinking through it, shape and symbols and harmony and contrast and things like that, because they're already focusing on details when they're working really big. But when you work small like this, you can't think about details. You have to think about these important shape things. Okay, so this, I'm thinking, what if we did... What if we did something like that? I'm thinking it's something that he's just gonna like totally be lounging in. Something like that. And I'm really liking this one, but we'll keep going. We can come back to it, but we'll keep going to 20 designs. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It took me 14 to get to this one. But let's go to 20 and see if something happens that's better than that. This is kind of cool. Have this little window in there. That makes me think of something else. Okay, so the idea is that there's like one pipe that's going through the whole thing. And I like that. I like that idea. We're going to try it again here. Yeah, let's try one more. Number 20. Maybe that's better. I'm going to keep going. All right, let's see here. This is interesting. This is good, but let's play with the proportions there a little bit. That feels... That feels right. But let's just add a little more cushion to it. And what's that going to do is make it, maybe we don't even need armrests on it. Man, I think this might be there. Like, this is such a unique interesting design, but I feel like this is so much closer to what Skull Chaser would sit in.
It's kind of like that one, but it's a little more angular. Let's just do one more like this.
We're going to move all of these up the page a little bit. Maybe make it a little bit rounder. Something like that. Although I do feel like it needs to have angles to it. Round feels like he'll slide right out. So let's stick with this. Let's just make a copy of this. Just see what it would look like with arms on it. Maybe that's the design. I like this. All right. So we did 20 plus designs. We found a silhouette that we like, and you saw how long that took. That was, if I were to be thumbnailing or sketching these out, number one, I wouldn't have gotten to this design. I would have started somewhere there. I would have gotten tired after 5 designs. Silhouettes is a great way to just plow through a bunch of designs and find something really solid at the shape level. Let's take it to the next step now and see where we can, what we can do with it. Okay. I'm going to turn off that, and let's do some thumbnail sketches, just a little bit bigger. I'm going to switch to a brush that's a little bit more like a pencil. And here we are, just figuring out a little bit more of what these shapes are gonna look like. I think sideways, it should come up like that a little bit more. Like this should be the design of it sideways. Okay, so letting that influence me, let's do kind of a 3/4 view of this. That's good, but I'm losing some of the stuff that I like going on there, like how wide it is. So I'm going to make it a little bit wider. And see how thick these dark parts are in there? I'm going to add that as a design element too. Okay, erase out some of the stuff, and now I've got a thumbnail that I can take to a more finished sketch. Okay, this is good. This is good. All right. Next step is the finished sketch. And I'm actually going to blow this up a little bit bigger and lighten it up. This is one of the advantages of working digital, is you can this would just be really hard to do traditionally, because you have to copy it, then get scan it, print it, blow it up, print it out bigger, then get a light box to go over it. And I And when you work on digital, you don't have to do that. Okay, so now we're going to figure out. So we've been working on proportion. We've been working on basic shapes. Now we're going to figure out harmony and contrast. At this stage, harmony and contrast. Go back into that again. Okay, so the idea is we have this pillow or this headrest that's wide. It would fit his helmet really well. I'm thinking from the top view, it actually looks something like that. Okay, we're giving some dimension to that piece there. And because it has this sort of shape going on with the top view, I'm going to have some of that reflect in the bottom here. So you can see here, this shape mirrors or harmonizes with that shape. And then we're going to have this one. We should have it be a reverse of this shape, so there's some more harmony there. There we go. This is feeling good. It's feeling a lot better. All right. And we're going to draw these stripes in it like this. Okay, and then we're going to add let's add these stripes here too. This again is harmony and contrast. So you've got these little lines that make up there, and they're contrasted against these darker sides. And then we have these tapering shapes, so I'm going to bring this tapering shape into here. Okay, I'm not getting too into drawing a 3/4 top down angle, which would be like looking at it like this. This is a cone pointing at it, because I want to figure out what it would look like from this angle first. We're actually gonna do that in the next stage, and I think would see the top of the armrest here just from this angle.
Let me just erase these just a little bit lighter so I can draw on top of them better.
I think this actually goes out a little bit more. Probably would go to here. There we go. That feels better.
Okay, now this is looking good. I'm just going to go over the top of it with a little darker line along the edges to define it a little bit better.
Okay. And we're going to do these down here. Let's have this go out a little bit farther back there. All right, there's Skull Chaser's futuristic chair. This is the drawing stage. Your exercise now for this one is to design a lamp. Like I said at the beginning, it could be, you come up with the time period, the genre, the character that is associated with this lamp. I want you to do at least 20 silhouettes, 3 to 5 thumbnails, and 1 final sketch of this lamp. And don't worry about drawing it at different angles. You can even draw it just straight on side view. And then once you're done with that, we can move on to the next section. All right, we're going to talk about structure now. Structure is where you take this design that you've done, this drawing that you've done, which isn't totally solid, at least structurally. It doesn't exist in full 3D space, or at least visually you haven't shown how it exists in 3D space. And this is where you add structure. You also add more detail to it, and you really figure out how this prop is going to work and live in the environment that exists in, and even how the character interacts with it, or its size relationship to the character. I'm going to go over all of that in this section, and then I'm going to demo it. So first things first, background prop versus hero prop. I guess going into this, you should have an idea already if this is going to be something that is seen up close and is used a lot, or if it's just going to be something in the background. You remember I talked about the three main uses for a prop. There's usables, consumables, and garnish. And the difference between garnish and usables and consumables is a garnish is a background, and I guess what it distinguishes whether or not it's garnish or not is if it's in the background, if it's set dressing, or if it's something that the character actually interacts with, okay? And if it's something the character interacts with, it's going to need more detail. You're going to need to understand how it works, what it does to work it. And so here I have two examples. I have a sword designed to be a background prop and a sword designed to be a hero prop. I would probably do a close-up of the other end of the sword as well, but you can see here the background prop, not a ton of thought is put into the detail of it. It just needs to serve almost a perfunctory role of like sitting in the background, adding ambiance to the background. If it's a hero prop, you're probably going to see the hilt up close. You're going to see the handle, how it works. So you're going to want to take into thought, like, what are the materials that went into building this prop? What's the hilt made out of? What's on the handle? Is it a leather handle, or is it metal wrapped around there for grip? What kind of dings and scratches does it have into it? That's for a prop of this nature. Here we have something, a tennis racket, something we do see in our world more frequently than swords, probably. I don't know, it depends on what kind of stuff you're into on the weekends. But this would be the example of the amount of detail that you would put into a background prop. And this is the kind of detail that needs to go into a hero prop. A hero prop is going to, again, be seen up close. You're going to want to see the details of it. And especially if you're doing prop design for 3D animation or video games or things like that, if it's something that's going to be up close on the screen, the modelers who work off of your prop designs are going to want to get in there and figure out exactly how this prop works. But if it's something in the background, if you're illustrating a children's book, again, the image on the left here is more than enough for what you'll need. You could see here, this is my chair that I designed early on. This is just, if it was a background prop, you probably wouldn't need to take the design any further than what I did at the sketch stage. But if it is going to be a hero prop, you're going to want to go in there and add more detail and show how light might land on it, show the subtleties, like in the wood on where the seat is. You're going to want to show subtleties in form and how that works. And you can see here it's a top-down 3/4 view. And the reason I do that, and what I'm going to show you demo for you today, is because a top-down 3/4 view is probably it gives you the most information about an object from one angle as you can possibly get. So from this angle, you're seeing all 3 dimensions. If you're straight on side view, like the one in the background here for the background prop example, you're only getting 2 dimensions. You're getting front and side. But with the hero prop, you're getting front, side, and top. And that just gives you a lot more information to work with and understand what the shape of this thing is, okay? The next thing you need to pay attention to is size relationship. And so oftentimes I'll sketch out roughly what the size of the characters are that this prop is going to be used with, and then show that prop in relationship to the size the size of that prop is to the character. It's nothing more than this. Sometimes you can draw a character actually holding it, but if you already have a character design, just throw that character in there, resize the prop the size it needs to be, and that'll give you an idea of how much detail actually needs to be on it. If you're drawing a comic or a children's book or something like that, how much detail you actually need to design into it if it is a background prop. Okay, going back to the 3/4 view. When I'm drawing a 3/4 view, this is how I'm thinking. You can see here, this is like the basic shapes. And if you go back to How to Draw Everything course, I get way into that for the How to Draw Everything course. So this is the underlying shapes, and then sketch over the top of it what that design is actually going to be based on those shapes, and using those shapes as a guideline for that 3/4 view. And of course, I'll demo this, but I just wanted to show you basics of what that is. And then lastly, if you're going to go into animation or computer games, video games, and be a graphic and a concept designer or concept artist there, they're going to want you to be able to do orthographic views of your drawings. And so taking this chair, which I've done in this 3/4 view, I've done a front, side, and top view. These are the orthographic views. And the reason I've only done front, top, and side is because a modeler might not need any more than that to figure out the design. This is also helpful if you're planning on drawing this object from a lot of different angles for a graphic novel or for a children's book. You can do one of these as well. But typically, if you do a 3/4 view, you already got an idea of how it fits in your mind. Orthographic views are usually help other people to understand the size and the shape of this design or this prop from every different angle. The way that I do this is this is kind of like a lesson in and of itself, what we could do, but for the most part, I could take a longer time doing that, but I don't know how much orthographic view applies to what you're doing. Maybe I'll do a longer demo for it later, but basically it's understanding, extrapolating what a side view would look like, what a front view would look like, what a top view would look like based on what you have drawn in this 3/4 view. And so that essentially, I'm just going to draw over this a little bit here. That essentially this shape here that you're drawing for the back here from the front view is just going to look like that. And it has thickness, right? So you're just going to say side view, it's going to look like that. And then, maybe most chairs have an angle to them. So you're just going to move that thing back there. Chairs don't usually, the backs aren't usually perpendicular to the floor because it's not as ergonomic, right? And so you're having to make choices and make decisions like that as you're going through and drawing it. And then to figure out the top view, you could see here, if you look at the top view, the back of this is here, the front of it is there like that. And so when you're drawing the top view, that this shape, these ends right here and the top part there need to be this far apart from each other, right? So if we were to take that distance right there, it would be the same as this side view right here. It's kind of hard to explain, but another way to look at it is if you think about a top view of, say, what do we have here? This would be like a beach umbrella. You think about a beach umbrella, and each one of these is like a stripe on the beach umbrella. That's what a top view would look like. But what would a side view of that look like? Beach umbrellas have a curve to them. And then each of these lines comes down this way. Oops. like that. And so you would know that you could see they also meet at the middle here. So you know that these lines would start here and in there, start there and in there, start and end. And that's sort of the thing that you're doing here with the back of this this chair when it's at a weird, interesting angle like that. Like I said, this is not something you're gonna need to use all the time unless you plan on going into animation or video games. And this is a little bit more advanced stuff, but I wanted to show it in here in case you want to try it yourself. Maybe what we'll do with SVS is a course, an hour or 2 hours devoted just to doing orthos, and find a really good artist who knows how to do that well. But for the purposes of this course, I want to put this here, and we will move forward. Demo time. What I'm going to do now is show you how I'm going to take this chair design and do it in a 3/4 up, top 3/4 view. And then I'll do an ortho for it as well. And we'll go from there. This 3/4 view is also going to be a little bit bigger. I'm going to go in and add a little bit more detail as well, solidify some of the shapes a little bit better. And then once we go to, this is still just going to be a base drawing, a sketch. The next stage is going to be rendering. How do you do a final design to it? I'll show you my process for that. Every process varies depending on how you want to do final design, but I've got something that works pretty good. We'll get into that later. Let's go. Okay, let me get a new layer here. So if this exists in a box, I'm going to use this box as my basis for design. There we go. And go back to how to draw everything, should know how to do this. If you haven't taken that one before doing this prop design class and you're struggling with how to do shape and structure, go back and do that again. It'll help you. Okay, so we're going to say, goes.
We don't have to stay inside this box. We're just going to use this box for structure.
That means it can extend out of it, but we know where things are based on how this box is working. Okay, so this is the back. All right, we've got ourselves the basics here, but I don't like how it's getting wider at the top there, so we're just gonna fudge things a little bit according to our box. This is the center point, so we're gonna add that. Then we've got because it's a top view, we're going to see more of that top, less of the bottom. But I kind of like maybe if this was a side view, I like that it might be flatter on the top and we're seeing some of the thing there go on the bottom. So maybe there is something like that down there. Oops. Okay, and then we've got arms here. They're probably hooking up a little bit back there like that. Okay. adding those arms like that. And basically the arms are in a box like this. That's what I'm thinking as I'm drawing. And they're filling out that shape. And actually that's a better arm than the one I drew. So let's do that again. Let's actually do a box shape here. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. And then this box gonna be like that. Okay, so there we go. That works. That works pretty good. All right, now we've got this front part that comes down here. And then we've got the legs which work off of it. And I was thinking the design, if you remember from the silhouettes, I was thinking the design actually is something like that, almost like a forklift, which goes back behind it like this. So we're gonna go all the way back like that and just draw the base of this. We won't see it back behind there, but we can kind of sketch it in a little bit. And then it's got a little bit of thickness to it there like that. Okay, so this, I mean, there's a lot of lines here. I can sort of see through it all. Well, let's add a little bit of this structural line work on it there that we have. And maybe we make those lines a little bit. I'm going to redraw this. I'm just not liking that. So I'm going to redraw it a little bit better here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I think that feels a lot better. I wanted to show the bottom of it, but it just didn't work from this top-down 3/4 angle. Okay, now I've got a sketch. Now I can go over the top of it with a darker line, and this will solidify these shapes a little bit better. Okay, contour lines first. Here we go. Oops. I like working with the contour lines first, which are the outside lines. And at this stage, I am still making some like choices here. Like to make this arm rest a little bit longer. It gets wonky there, so let's straighten that out a little bit better. And there we go. Okay, let's go up here. Add this one. Okay. We've got this. Now we can add these lines down here. Okay. All right, we'll tone down this under drawing a little bit more so that our big drawing can, we can see it a little bit better. And then let's go in and add some of this stuff here. There we go. Okay, this is looking good. I like this design. We're going to add some line works here. And maybe we do something here on these armrests just so we can have some harmony between the armrests and the middle section of the chair. We'll add these here. Okay, that's good. This is a good structural sketch. I feel confident about it. I'm pretty happy with it. And I feel good to take it to, you know what, I'm going to fix one thing here though. I feel good taking this to a final render. There we go. So there's that. Okay. Let's now just do an ortho view of it. Let's turn off these layers, bring this here, put it over there. Okay, so if I were to be doing this, an ortho of this, I would start by getting an orange pencil and drawing the side box. Okay. There we go. This angle, that angle, I know this thing is perpendicular to the ground. And I know that it's thick right there. And there's a little bit of angle here like that. And then we would probably have just so that we have some design harmony here, we would have this thing taper off right there. Okay, and have that headrest be thick like that. And then this front here, I think it would go back like that just a little bit. And then this thing would taper off back there like that. It's a little wobbly just because I'm not the best at drawing horizontal lines straight. So we're gonna rotate the canvas here a little bit. There we go. Okay, so this would be the side view of it. It looks a little uncomfortable, so I'm thinking this headrest would come out like that a little bit more. There we go. Okay. So just drawing this box just helps you figure out where things are at comparatively. Go in there and do that. Okay, then front view, I'm going to draw another box. And we would have this thing in the center, like that. I'm just guessing, I'm just eyeballing it, but you know what, let's not eyeball it. Let's move this over here like this. And let's move this right here like that. I'm going to use these marks. So the top of this is going to be the top of that right there. That's about the same, but let's just make it just right. And then the arms are right there. So they would start like that and move their way down. This is the edge. And this is the middle. And this is the front edge. And there, you're just lining everything up, just like I was doing with the stripes on the umbrella. And then this is our headrest. And these are the striped areas. Just going to add them in here like this. Let's delete this or erase out this box. Okay, this is pretty much how you would go about doing a front and a side. We could do the top as well, which then we'll just base it off of this angle, which means the top would be, you know, something like this. But I think we get enough information from the front and side for this one that could help a modeler. Essentially though, when you're doing a top view, you're going to want to base it off of the dimensions of the front and the dimensions of the side to make sure that you get it all just right. But if you're doing it for your own purposes, for your own graphic novel or children's book, this kind of stuff really isn't necessary because it doesn't have to be too specific unless you're drawing this chair like on every single page. If that's the case, you know, God bless you for taking on that project. All right, so this is 3/4 view ortho. This is adding structure to your design, and the next stage, like I said, is going to be rendering. But before that, you got to do your exercise, and I'll explain that to you right now. Your exercise is for this one is to take your lamp drawing that you did, which maybe was just straight on, maybe you add a little bit of dimensionality to it, but I want you to do it from a 3/4 top angle, using a box, using some sort of structural base to get the design right, cylinder or something like that, and do a 3/4 angle like I did with this this chair, and do that final drawing. If you want to, you can do an orthographic, but you don't have to, unless you want that to be a part of your portfolio piece or you want practice doing that kind of thing. But I think you can get away with just doing the 3/4 top view for now. All right, get started on that, and we'll move on to the next section. All right, now we're going to do rendering, and you should have a pretty good solid drawing or a sketch of your design now. It's not finished at this point. This last stage is how we're going to add details like color, details that you can add through line work, like solidifying the line work, texture, and some, I would say just like some dings and scratches or anything you can to add a little bit of history or a little bit of life to your design now. But I want to run you through first the 4 or 5 different stages of rendering that I do, and then I'm going to demonstrate that for you. Okay, so the first step I have here is the sketch, and I'm just using a cube as like a basic shape to run all these through, the process of rendering through. This is a sketch, and you can see it's just solidly like defining the shape of the cube. And then once the sketch is done, I go over the top with line work. And this is, I mean, there's 100 different ways to render. This rendering style that I do is what I found is like gets you the most bang for the amount of time that you need to put into it. And it looks good for comics. And I think it looks good for children's books too. It looks fine for concept art as well. But there's 100 different ways to render, thousands of different ways to render. So I'm just going to run you through my process of how do you take this sketched out prop design to the final rendered look that I particularly like to do. Okay, so my work is very line based. It's very linear. So I always give a good attention to the line weight and how to make these lines look good. And if you want to go in deeper with that, make sure you check out the inking course, How to Ink 2.0. I get into specifics there. Okay, so once your line work is done, and the line work just solidifies everything that you sketch, and you actually have to like pick the lines that you're going to use to define the shape, then you go in and color it. This is just a flat coloring stage. You don't have to worry about shading or anything at this level. And so here I've added coloring, and then the shadow stage. So once color and line is there, then I go in and I start adding shadows. And then finally, the texture stage, where I go in and add highlights and little scratch and pock marks and any sort of history or character to the prop or the design, whatever design that I'm doing, just to make it its own and make it a little bit more unique. So those are the stages of rendering, and now I'm going to demo out this for you as I render out this this chair for Space Skull, Skull Chaser. He used to be called Space Skull, and that was his working name for a long time. My Space Skull character, but then I saw that someone already had a webcomic called Space Skull, and I decided I didn't even want to like go there and mess with it, and didn't want them saying, "Hey, you took that name from us." So I changed the name to Skull Chaser, and I think Skull Chaser is actually a better name because I'm glad that I was able to have that problem where someone already took the name I was using, because it made me think more creatively, and it actually helped me come up with a better like basis for this this character, for who he is and what he's doing. All right, so this is our sketch. I'm going to go over it now. I've got a new layer here. I'm going to go over it with my ink line. Now, just go in here and define specifically this stuff. And what I like to do is, with my line work, is give it some variance to it so that the lines aren't always the same width all the way through it. And what that does is just adds a little bit more character and interestingness to your line work. Sometimes if you get a little stiff with your line work, it can almost look like a render from a computer instead of from a human. This particular brush that I'm using is, what's it called? It's the Kyle's Inkbox Mr. Natural Ink Brush, which I purchased from Kyle Webster, I think before it was owned by Adobe. And if you do have a subscription to the Creative Cloud, Adobe CC, then I think all of his brushes are available, this brush included. But if you're like me and you're too cheap to pay for a subscription for Adobe, which honestly, I'm probably gonna bite the bullet and get it this year, because I have an old computer and I'm worried that the computer's gonna zonk out on me. Is that a word? It's gonna stop working. And if you what the deal is now is I'm running Photoshop 6 on it, and I think if I get a new computer, I don't know if Photoshop 6 will work with it. So we'll see. I'll try it. I found that Photoshop 6 has everything on it that I need. And I've messed around with the newer versions of Photoshop, and I don't use all the new stuff as much as I guess to warrant me paying the price it is monthly. So we'll see. We'll see though. Might change my mind. Because there are some really nice like design tools in the new Photoshop. As the way it like lines stuff up for you, and just doing some graphic design stuff is a lot easier in it. And I like to do graphic design. Not that I'm a graphic designer, but I always end up doing with my publishing stuff, adding some graphic design stuff to it. I'm softening some of the corners of all this just because I don't want it to look too sharp and hard. Because I feel like if it's too sharp and hard, it won't be, it won't feel like it's something that Skull Chaser would want to sit on. Might be something more for like Skull Chaser's enemy. All right, so there's my line work. You can just see how like better defined it is to put this darker, cleaner line work on there. Okay, next up, we're gonna do the coloring, and I'm gonna make a layer underneath for the coloring, but to fill it faster, I'm gonna select around the outside of this, and then invert the selection, and then contract by 2 or 3 pixels. Okay, and then fill it with a reddish color. There we go. All right, you know what? We'll do red. That's a good red. Okay, so now we've got that, and I'm gonna find like a neutral gray here to do the metal part. Okay, and then I'm thinking this middle part here is going to be white, but more like a creamy white. So I'm going to go up into this yellow, so it's not like a total perfect white. At this stage too, like if you don't already have a good idea of the colors that you want to use, like coloring can be really frustrating, like finding the exact right colors. And so I think you go back to who's the character that's going to be using this, how does this fit in the environment, and you might wait to color, you know, if you're not sure what colors to pick, you might wait to design an environment and then see what the colors of that environment are, and then base the color of your prop on that. Or what you could do is you could have your prop be an anchor prop and color everything based off of the color of that prop. Sometimes designers will do that. They'll find a perfect couch or a perfect lamp or a coffee table or something like that. Interior designers will, and they'll have this nice color to it that they like, and so they'll design an entire room around it. Not that it brings attention to that central piece, but that the room is cohesive because they're all going back to how do we fit in with this one piece. Okay, you know what? I think it might be done that it matches Skull Chaser a little too close. So what if we make the whole thing this cream and the metal part is just metal? Yeah, that seems better, because if he's got a red suit on, so he might blend in too much if the chair is the same color. Okay. Got to get all these little red parts. And got to clean it up now where I went over the lines a little bit. Okay, this actually feels a little bit better for me now. Okay, so I've got line work. Now I've got color in here. And let's add some shadow. And here's my shadow technique. You're gonna love this because it makes things so easy. You get this, you could basically pick any one of these dark colors on the bottom of this palette here, these swatches. And then I like purple. And then you set it to multiply and you drop that down to 30%. Okay, so 30% is going to be your shadow layer. And you go in here and you just add shadow over the top. And what it does is because it's set to multiply, it still lets the color of the object show through, but you're giving it just a little bit of this color of the shadow to it. You could use black, but I find that when you make your colors based on shadows, it makes the shadows look a lot more lively. Black can kind of deaden the color of your object, the overall feel of your object. And Lee's class, Light and Shadow, is a good class to take to help you at this stage too. He's got a lot of ideas on how to light an object or add shadow to an object. I definitely recommend looking at that one. This is almost like a cell shading way of coloring. It's the way that they would color animation or anime. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of shadow on this part and on this edge. Make my brush smaller. And what that does, it just gives these pieces just a little bit more weight to them. Weight and what would you call it? Like dimension. That's right. I'm thinking this kind of seat would be a seat you would find in like a 1980s Camaro. And it's some sort of faux leather. I could still hear my dad had it wasn't a Camaro, but it was like a AMC Spirit, I think is what it was. And it had faux leather seats. And I could still hear, we grew up in Arizona. I did. And I remember we'd like ride in this car to go to the swimming pool, and you'd already be sweating. As soon as you got in that car, you'd be sweating because it's hot in Arizona. And I just still remember like the back of my legs sticking to the fake leather, and the sound it would make as my legs would peel off of the off of the leather. Oh, let's go up here. Now, what you can also do is go in here with an eraser. Let's do eraser and bring the softness down all the way. And then you can erase this edge here. And that's one way to really make this stuff feel round. Okay, but then where you've erased that you still need lines there, you're gonna have to go back in and add them. And this thing would be casting a shadow, just a little bit of a shadow. So we're gonna add that right there. Whoa, airplane flew really close. I don't know if you could hear that on my microphone, but there's like a plane, sound like a private jet, just getting way too close. I live about 15 miles from an airport, like a regional airport. So certain times of the day, there's a lot of planes flying over. There we go. So now it's casting a little bit of shadow over that. That'd be good. Okay. Next step, make a new layer. Set to multiply 30%. We're using the same purple. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a big giant brush like this big. And we're going to set the hardness all the way down. And what we're going to do is actually we're going to make it a little bit smaller. We're just going to go right here like that. And then we're going to go in and erase right here. And what this is doing is the effect that gave was a little bit of light, a shadow on this part that's going up. And we're going to need to erase out the top of this too. Okay. And then we're going to go back and we're going to do it right here too. And then erase the top there. Okay, so that gives it just a little bit, turn it off and turn it on. You can see it gives it just a little bit more realism to it. I'm just going to do a little bit right there too. And maybe right there. Yeah, that's good. All right, I think this is colored. Now the last step, we're going to add a little bit of texture in places. And I'm going to make a new layer on top here and just go in and add a little bit of like pock marks on this. Just like this is seeing, it's seen a little bit of action over the years, right? Okay, then we're going to get our shadows to go over the top of these. All right, now we're going to do a little bit of highlight. We get a straight white and just put it on the edge of this right here. And maybe right here. Just get a little bit of a shine. Oh, I think each one of these things need a little bit of white on them too. This is going to help them feel a little bit shinier. Not shinier, but give them just a little bit of definition, a little more definition. There we go. Oh, we'll do this edge right here too. There we go. Okay, and now I think we're done. We've got the highlights on there, we got the texture on there, we got shadow, we got color, and this is how you make a prop from start to finish, from initial sketch, remember those little thumbnail silhouettes, to final design. I can't wait to like throw this in a comic and put it like, not that this is going to be like a hero thing, but just put it in the background or show Skull Chaser like chilling out in it. So, all right, your assignment now is to take that design that you've done and render it out like this. Finish it, polish it, render it in the way that you feel is best. You can use this rendering example that I showed because it's fast and effective. But if there's a way that you like rendering or a style that you prefer, go ahead and do it in that as well. Remember, this is a portfolio piece. This is going to go in your portfolio, so you want it to reflect how you actually create, and also you get the work from people. You get hired to do the work by them basically based off the work that you do, that you show in your portfolio. So if this is the kind of stuff you want to do, got to put in your portfolio. All right, we'll move on to the next section. Okay, so what we're going to work on now is the ensemble. And the ensemble is when you bring all the props together that need to go in a particular scene or a particular environment. These things all come together. They should look like they belong in the same universe, that they were designed in the same world. And what I call that is the prop ensemble. And the first thing I want to get into is shape language. What shape language is. Okay, so shape language is a lot like word language, right? Shape language has alphabets, it has grammar, I guess you could call it. This is all symbolic. But in language, you use letters to put together words and words to put together sentences. It's the same thing with your shapes. So let me show an example here. Here we have a square, and the square can be used as the basis to make all of these shapes here. The square has straight edges, it has sharp corners, and so I can, based off of that, if this square is the cornerstone of this shape language, then everything in here is going to have straight lines, sharp corners. Even if it's a triangle, even if it's a trapezoid or what is this? A parallelogram? No. Calvin, what is this shape?
Which one?
This one right here.
Parallelogram.
It's a parallelogram, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what happens when we change our core shape there? What we got is, here I'm saying the shape language for this square now is we're going to have straight edges, but we're also going to have rounded off corners. So when I go to design other things into this world of this square, is everything's going to have straight edges, but they're all going to have rounded off corners. Okay, now let's change it up a little bit. What if this square is wrinkly on the bottom? All right, so let's look at all these. Each one of these things is going to have sort of a wrinkle towards the bottom. And that's what I'm saying, is in this world, Maybe the material is made of something a little bit different. Maybe the edges are made of something a little different. Those are the things you want to think about. The other thing to think about is proportions as well. So you might say in this part of the shape language is the proportions are all going to favor 1/3 over the other third, or going to favor 2/3 over the 1/3. And I'll show you an example here. This is the designs I did for Horton Hears a Who. These are some of the vehicles and some of the instruments. And one thing we established early on with Horton is we were looking at all Dr. Seuss's books. And all of his designs, there weren't straight lines. There was only curved lines. Everything had a curve to it. Not only that, everything had sort of a taper to it. So it'd be longer on one end and thinner on the other end. And then somewhere in the middle, there's always like some sort of wrinkle. And then at the bottom, things would just kind of wrinkle out to a bottom, right? And so looking at these things, we decided, okay, so we just imagined everything is being made out of clay that wasn't fully set. So it still had some squish to it, just a little bit of squish to it. So you could look with this instrument, this horn instrument. We put the wrinkles in there, the things taper to it. You can see how there's just a little bit of a wobbliness to it. You could see here with this device, it's like a giant cello or something, a bass. Every piece in this has sort of a taper and a wider, fatter end and a thinner top to it. Didn't quite fit some wrinkles in here, but not everything did have wrinkles. But we established that things that were usually made out of metal or tubular type of things were going to have wrinkles in them than things that weren't made out of those things. But you can see here with these devices as well, just the tapering, the bowing to everything. Nothing is straight. There's no straight pieces on anything. Everything has a little bit of a wobbliness to it. Okay, so that was Dr. Seuss. And then if you look at this example I found from the Wreck-It Ralph art book, the Niceville, what was it called? The Nice Town people? I forget exactly what the guys from Fix-It Felix Jr. And so they established that these guys they live in like a pixelated world. So all these guys are going to favor square and boxy. So everything in their, in the bar that they have is going to favor that squarish, pixelated look to it. You can see here he's about 2.5 heads high. So if you did 1 head plus 1 head plus a half a head, that would get the height. And so that is sort of reflected in all these pieces over here. This wine bottle, which is usually taller and skinnier, is going to be rounder and fatter. These martini glasses, the same, a little bit squattier. And so that's just something to think about when you're doing shape language. I'll show you one more example. These are some designs I did for a project called Dizzywood. And they just said, hey, come up with a bunch of different designs of devices. And I think these are like communication holograph devices of some sort. And they said, don't make them look like they are made out of any sort of technology we have today. And so the design language that I came up with for this was based off of light bulbs. And light bulbs are round on one end and they taper off towards the other end. And so everything sort of has that kind of vibe to it. I also did these designs at the same time I was working on Horton. So a little bit of Horton influenced some of it as well. But you could see here too, like the repetition of round cylindrical shapes with flat circular shapes poking out of them. That was repeated a few times. And so that's just establishing a language. How do shapes work with each other? How do you stay consistent with harmony and with contrast? Where do you contrast shapes? Where do you harmonize with shapes? And the way that you did that on the single design, you're going to use across the board with all of your other designs. So how do you establish this? And that is by looking at your anchor prop. And that's the first prop that you designed, or the prop that you feel establishes this the best in your mind. That's going to be your anchor prop, and you're going to use that to influence the rest of your designs. So we have this chair here that I designed earlier. And what are some of the pieces that are part of this chair that we could have, that we could use as our shape language moving forward to design other pieces of furniture or other items that are going to be in the same room as this chair, look like they live in the same world. So some of the things I established with this chair is that there's no real round ball parts. They all have this edge to it. So here and down here, these things have they're round, but they have a sort of an edge in the middle, and then they taper off at the ends. Every sort of piece gets wide at one end and goes thin to the other end. So we see that in the back part of the chair. We see it in the individual pieces that make up the back part of the chair. From these little poles here in the middle to the structural outside of it, to even the hand rests. Even the seat gets wider at one end and tapers off closer to the other end. And then I added these little pyramid triangular things on the bottom of that. And so that's just another piece that can pop up in other places as well. And then this whole thing sort of has a 1/3, 2/3 split, right? So if you look at it, 1/3 of it is down here. The bulk of it is down in this 1/3. 2/3 of it is happening up here. The design of it is stretched out up there. So these are, using this anchor prop, I'm looking at all these little design elements, and now I know moving forward that I want to use these pieces and this thought process to design other pieces that would belong in this room. So what I've done here is I've got the original drawing that I did from the thumbnail, and I'm going to use that as a basis for designing the rest of the items that would go with this chair. So I have a lamp, I have a teacup, a saucer, saucer, and then like a table. And thinking through, looking at this, applying this language to it, I feel like I've made an ensemble here that matches this chair, and they all feel like they go together. So this lamp is favoring the 2/3. We've got 2/3 is wrapped up in lampshade, 1/3 is sort of wrapped up in this stem here. It's not exactly, I mean, if you include this part, it gets closer to that, but it sort of has a vibe of that. It leans towards that way. This little design piece here mirrors that there. This piece up here mirrors or harmonizes with some of these triangular pieces on the handrest. We've got tapering in the legs, and then again these pieces pop up here and harmonize. And then the teacup also has this sort of taper to it as well, albeit not as pronounced, but it's there too. So this is harmony, contrast. You also have the contrast of shapes where we've got wider, bigger shapes with much thinner, narrower shapes too. Okay, so that's harmony and contrast. What I'm going to do now is show you how I would design other things that go into, that would go with Space Gull's chair. I'll demonstrate that for you, and then from there, tell you what your final exercise is. All right, time to do the demo. And what I'm going to do here is I want to add a lamp to go with Skull Chaser's chair, a table, like a side table or a nightstand, something like that. Something for him to drink out of, and something for him to do, like read a book or some sort of tablet thing or something. All right, so let's get started, and I'm going to walk you through this process. Okay, so we've got the chair design here, and what I'm going to do is, working off of this, I spent so much time with the silhouettes of the chair design. I don't know if I need to spend as much time thinking of a of a table design to go with it because the silhouette solved a lot of design problems. So what I'm thinking is, the silhouette stage got me into this zone. So I'm thinking maybe for this stage, I don't need to do it as much, but my advice is I don't want you to not do it just because I'm not doing it. So I'm going to do it. Because a lot of times you come into a space where you find something that you wouldn't normally find. I guess I can't be a hypocrite. See, even at this stage in my professional career, I'm still trying to like cut corners and not do things the hard way. Right now I'm just looking at if the chair is, something like this, then this table could be something like that. Or maybe it's straight up and down. It could just come out of the wall. I'm glad I'm doing this now because I really would have just done my first pass, and I don't know if it was good because already I'm getting into a space where I'm finding some ideas that I wouldn't have originally gone to. Okay, so this idea here is that it's like an adjustable thing. It's in the ground, like planted to the ground. I wasn't going to even think of that idea. Yeah, maybe I do kind of like that one. See, this idea right here is it's interesting because it's got this variance of shape that's going on. There's sort of a contrasting kind of bend to it there, which I like. But let's add some angles to it because the chair is more angular as well. So maybe that's what we do. Just do one more simple one. Almost like using the same base as the chair. But the thing is, I don't want it to get in the way of the chair. So that's why I'm thinking like an arm comes around and it's just planted to the side of the wall or something. This one feels the best. Feels like it matches the best. So I'm going to go with this one for that. And then I need to come up with, if this is the table, and I've got the chair. I've got the chair coming in like right next to it like this. Then I need some sort of lamp on the top, some sort of lighting situation. So actually, what if this was the lights design and I made a simpler table for it to go on top of? So there's just a table like this, and then on top of it is like an adjustable light. That's cool. Okay, so we go simple table design. and we stick a light that kind of swivels around on it. All right. This whole time I thought I was designing a table. Really, I was designing a light and some sort of cup to go on it. So it was something like that. I'm just thinking something that goes more with this thing that I've established with the chair. It's got like a tall water bottle, water utensil thing, water container. And it's got some sort of handle on it. Maybe it doesn't need a handle. Yeah, maybe it's like a little teacup. Maybe, Skullchasers you drink out of a mug. So what if it's like a shorter mug with an angle? I like that. I think that's probably best. Okay, and then, so we're gonna put like this little mug, this fat mug on the top there. And then just a simple reading device, like a book thing. I'm just gonna do something like that. Skullchaser has, I've already got like this thing established where he's got this backpack life support thing that he wears, and it's got a line that goes around like that, and then there's these 3 vents right there. So maybe I just use that with the book. Or maybe there's like some sort of disc thing on it. That's a good idea. Just to make it a little more interesting. Oh, it could be like a wedge shape, and it's got a little clip on it right there. Or maybe, no, here we go. Wedge shape. I know these aren't silhouettes, but because I'm using such a fat tip for this thing, it forces me not to worry about details and just blocky shapes. That's the principle, not the letter of the law here. It's the principle of the law. So this works. This feels like it goes with this. Again, I'm not spending too much time on this design because I don't think this is going to be a hero prop, more just background stuff. So we've got, I'll change my color here. We're going to go with this design. We're going with this design. We're going with that design. And now we can move to the next phase, the drawing phase. Move into the second part of this demo, and now I'm going to take these thumbnails that I've designed and do a nicer drawing, a more detailed drawing of them. Okay, so I've got them here on my paper, working digitally. I got them all here together so I can refer to them easily. And I've got my sketch pencil ready to go. Okay, so let's start with this table. So it's probably, you know what, let's, I want to design it with this. So I'm just going to move this here. And And let's see. Something like this. Just looking at that, I know it's a little bit thicker there. And if you look here, like, it's really sketchy, but there is actually something really interesting about what's going on with that sketchiness. So I could make this table a little bit thicker, like it has separate layers to it. Maybe. Okay, so now we're going to put this lamp up there. And this is where I'm going to put in this sort of wedge shape. I'm going to have that lamp have a wedge shape like that. And I'm going to have the table have it down here as well. So that's how we can get these two pieces of furniture to look like they go together. Sometimes harmony doesn't have to be shapes that match each other. It could be that they just look like they were designed in the same universe. Sometimes you don't want everything to be so matchy-matchy. Let's make this lamp a little bit taller. Maybe. And let's flip it. Let's see what happens. Let's flip it. Oops. No, I wanted to flip it vertical. There we go. Feels a little bit more lampy, maybe. No, I'm going to go back. Yeah, I like that. I like that better. We've got this angle here, so I'm thinking maybe we do something like that. We do keep these angles in there like that. Yeah, that's better. That's better. And then I think we do that. All right, I feel like that works a little bit better. And then we're just going to have our big fat mug here. Like that. Put our book like that, maybe next to it. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Let's lighten this up and get a darker pen here, darker brush, and nail this down a little bit better. I'm going to have the table have a thicker top and a thinner bottom part to it as well. Figure this out. It's a little sketchy. I'll figure it out better in the final render. This is just here to help me get to that 3/4 view. What we're going to do. Let's see here. This thing attaches like that. We'll make this thicker and this one a little bit thinner as it goes up. And then I'm thinking of adding just like some little thing like this. Just a mechanical bit, and maybe something there like that. Well, let's do it here too, just so it looks like it can move. And then we'll put something there like that as well. And then the light comes out of it right here like this. Okay, and our fat mug. A bit of steam coming out of it. He's drinking like warm milk or something. I was writing a story for Skull Chaser last week, and one of the ideas I had was it takes place in the future, and in the future, like so many things are synthetic, and like nobody lives, not everybody can live on Earth or on even on a planet that is as green and as nice as Earth is, I was thinking in this story. And so because of that, a delicacy and something that's really hard to get and hard to come by is milk, because you can't synthetically make milk. At least you can't make it taste exactly like milk. And so Skull Chaser, he actually he has like 50-gallon drums of milk that he's going to sell on the black market. And, he uses them as collateral in a bet in this story that I'm writing. I just thought it was funny that, all this hubbub about milk, which is something we really take for granted in this day and age, but I thought it'd be cool as a story point that it's something like really special in the future. And I remember there was a show in the 80s, I think it was called, I forget what it was called, but these aliens just come to live on Earth, and one of their favorite things is like sour old milk. It's like their alcohol or something. But I think that's where that idea subconsciously came from. Okay. Oh, this looks good. We're going to move on to the next phase now. All right, this is the next phase for the prop design demo here, the ensemble demo, and let's get right into it. I've got my 3/4 top down looking 3/4 of my chair here. Let's go ahead and start figuring out this table. So this is the space that this cube is taking up, or the cube space that this table is taking up. So let's do this. Actually, now that I think about it, let's add just a kind of a triangular shape to the table. Just cut out a corner there. And what we can do is, let's see, if the cube goes like this, then this leg part is going to come down here just like this and fill up this space right there. It's going to cut in like that. See how it comes down like that? Okay, so now we've got that leg part, and then we can put these foot parts on it right here like this. Okay, this is all very sloppy and messy, but it's structural because we're going in with these cube shapes first. We're getting the structure of it, and just build these shapes up from basic shapes. Remember, we go from squares to complex. That's what we're doing here. Okay, and then let's have our lamp kind of do this. We'll have it do something like that. And then we'll put our mug on it right here like this. There we go. And then we'll put our book, our binder. This is like his binder of how he keeps track of his jobs or something like that. Put it right there. You know what? We're not going to do that. We're going to have it be at an angle because no one sets a binder exactly on, perpendicular to everything on the table. So we'll have it be like this. Okay, let's throw some cylinders in here and just define these shapes a little bit better. Okay, good. Now that we've got that structurally figured out, let's go ahead and get these lines nailed down a little bit better. Okay, this is the top of the table first. Remember how it's broken into 3 parts just as a design choice that I stumbled upon from my doodle. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. That's cool. And I'm just going in here and picking out the lines that best meet my needs. There we go. And it's going to come straight through like this. So we're going to see it right there. Okay, so there's the bottom foot of the table. And let's do this mug. Let's get in really tight here. This mug of milk, of valuable earth milk. There we go. And then we'll add the binder over here with its latch that sort of matches what we've got going on already, angular. And then I believe if I go back to my thumbnails, there it is. Yes, I put a line in it right there. So let's put a line right here. Okay, cool. Now we've got to do this lamp. And I think if I remember correctly, yeah, I put extra little bits on here just to make it a little bit more solid of a, not solid, but give it like a little bit more structure to it. Maybe this helps. Maybe that'll help it feel more mechanical. Right now here I'm making a choice, making it a little bit thinner because I feel like that gets too thick from how I was drawing it. It makes it almost feel like too heavy for itself. There we go. Just adding little harmonizing design accents to it. Okay, there's that. Let me zoom out here a little bit to figure out this part. Okay, what if this lamp was a little bit thinner too? There we go. Um, See how it comes out back here like that? I'm not really doing it with this. So what I'm thinking is I need to erase this part and actually have it come out more like that and obscure some of this part here. There we go. Yeah, that feels better. This still feels a little unsubstantial, so we're gonna give it some dimension there. All right, there's our lamp. And we've got our structural drawing now of the table that goes with our chair. Is there something we could add to it? I think this is good. I was just thinking these lines that go down the center of the chair, there's a place to add these, but I think that'd be too matchy. So we're just gonna leave it like that. All right, here's the last part of this this final demo. It is the rendering stage, and it's basically going to be just the same process as I've done before, but I'll walk you through it. And here we go. What I've done is I've put this sketch on the same layers as the chair design that I did before. Now I'm going to go in ink over the top of everything. Oh, that's not black exactly. There we go. And remember, with inking, you want a thicker outline and thinner lines in the interior. And I get into that in the inking course. And with this style, I'm okay with lines not being perfectly straight, but just because I'm doing it doesn't mean that's what you're supposed to do or what you want to do, but I'm trying to stay consistent in style. So if I went in and did a ruler on all this, it might not work. It might not look like it matches the rest of it. Maybe in thinking about this table, how it's going to show up in a story someday, it may be that there's something hidden in it. That's why it's got these multiple levels to it. Like you can open up. Maybe what it does, it opens up to be a bigger table. That's why there's two levels to it. That'd be cool. I can't draw something without thinking it through, like why is it designed like that? Because I don't know, I grew up reading comics in the 90s, right? And there's so many American comics, at least, there were so many design choices that were done just for the sake of this looks cool and not for any particular like engineering choice, And I'm a firm believer that function, that form can follow function and should follow function, and that when it does follow function, it has a certain beauty to it. So if there's if there is this sort of panel here, I know I came up with the form first, but I want to at least give it an actual reason. There's a artist that I became a big fan of called Masamune Shirow, Japanese artist. He did a book called Appleseed. He also came up with Ghost in the Shell. But Appleseed just blew my mind when I saw that, because it this is a comic that I think was drawn in the late 80s, early 90s. And this guy was going in, and things looked like they were actually designed by real engineers. You could see all the parts. You know, his machines would open up and you could see the parts on the inside. And it looked like everything had a reason for it, you know, a reason to be there. When you open up a car engine, open up the hood to your car, you look in there, there's no piece of machinery in there that doesn't do something. Everything has a reason to be there. And this guy's art did the same thing. His designs were the same. At least they looked like that. And that was really impressive to me. And that's what I realized, like, okay, I want to do art like that. I want to make drawings that look cool, but also might even actually function in the real world. And so, yeah, I studied that work, and I tried to bring that level of, since then, I've tried to bring that level of believability, maybe not realism, but believability to the work that I do. Cars are really great sources of design inspiration because they're like this perfect blend. Cars, and I would say like airplanes, they're this perfect blend of, but you know, cars more so. Airplanes really do have to follow laws of physics and aerodynamics, and there's not a ton of room for personal design choices there, but cars have all the room in the world for design choices. And so you look at a car, and it's been both designed by an artist and an engineer. Yeah, it's like a marriage of these two opposing disciplines, right? What's great about airplanes, though, is there is beauty in the engineering. And, you know, someone once said too, like, if it looks beautiful, it'll fly beautiful as well. I don't know how true that is. But I like to believe it. The other thing that kind of cars where design takes a backseat to engineering is Formula One. And in Formula One, those cars are not designed to be beautiful. They're designed to be fast. And for every little surface, every little wing you see on those things, every little spoiler has a purpose. It's to direct airflow to some other section or away from the vehicle, or to push it down or something like that. But because of those things, those cars do have like a certain beauty to them that you don't see in other cars. Okay, got my inks done. Now let's do our colors on the colored layer. We're just going to match what we've been doing. We're going to switch to a hard round. I already picked out colors, so we don't have to go colors for some of these things, so we don't have to go too search around too hard for what colors we want to do. And here's a little trick I learned from the Creature Box boys. I don't know if you've heard of them. Creature Box is two guys who are concept artists for video games. And I used to color like in the lines all the time. And I watched a couple of their demos, and they just would draw a circle or a blob around the thing they're coloring and then erase. And I was like, why why do that? What difference does it make? But when you're doing Photoshop brushes, it's easier to erase away than to stay within the lines. Because if you look at it, like for me to make a perfect triangle, I have to be like pretty precise. I have to go in there and make sure I make these lines like just right. Or you can do a blob like that and just go and just carve it out. And there you get an even sharper triangle than if you're trying to draw it. And so I think that's what's going on there. I think that's why it works. Because you have to be precise when you're trying to color within the lines. And then you just select the extras and delete them. Okay, let's turn off our pencils there. Let's see, anything else we need to have be gray on the, oh yeah, probably this whole thing. If you look at the class designing robots and machinery, I go a lot into specifics on how to design machines, mechanical things. That class is due for an update, and I'd like to update it, make it the level of quality that I've been making this class, and how to draw everything. Just better video, better examples, better demos, better audio quality. But the information in that class is still very, very valuable if you can handle some of the lower production values. Okay, there's that. And then we're going to make his mug red. That way it'll really look like it goes with Skull Chaser. Might draw a lot of attention to it as well, but I just feel like this needs a little pop of red in it. And then we'll put milk in there. Make that milk a little bit more yellow. Just a creamy color. Okay, and then the binder, we're gonna do like, oh, we'll make it part metal. We'll make this part metal. We'll make the back part metal right here. And then what we're going to do is make this clamp thing metal as well. Okay, and then I think we need to do this cream color. Pull these items all together. And even the table. Okay, we're just going to fill it all. And then we could go in and erase those out. Just a couple spots there where they're not looking very tidy. Oh, gotta get in there too. Now, when you're doing white or light color and you're erasing out, it's often good to just put a darker background behind it like that so that you can see where you miss, oops, wrong layer. See where you miss parts. Because when it's light on light, you miss little areas. There we go. Okay, we're coming in here. We're gonna erase down this way. The other thing you can do, I suppose I could have done with this one, is select outside of these areas and just do a delete. But sometimes I get into this groove where I just want to erase. All right, that looks good. Okay, wand, delete, wand, delete, wand, delete. All right, now let's do our shadow layer. Remember this purple that we used before? You can see here there's like all these areas where I haven't colored. What I'm gonna do is fill in that spot right there. But what I'm gonna do is I am gonna select outside the line work here. I'm gonna expand that selection by 2. So now you can see the selection is bleeding into the line work a little bit. I'm going to inverse it. So now I have everything selected, including those little dots and those little spots that weren't. I'm just going to fill it with this gray. Okay, so when I turn this off, you can see it's all gray there. And I'm going to merge those down. So now when I select this layer, all those holes are filled. If I turn off the line work, you can see every little hole is filled. It's just a way to make your designs a little bit more cleaner when you're coloring. Okay, now we can add shadow. We're going to say this leg is all in shadow. We're going to say this side's all in shadow too. And we're going to have this corner of the table match up down there. Just going to erase that out a little bit better. There we go. And we're going to have this part in shadow too. Okay, and this is all in shadow, but I think this part of the table should not be in shadow. We're going to do a lighter shadow right in the front here. So I set my brush to 50%. I'm just going to color in this part. There we go. And we're going to erase out this section. Oops, getting closer there. Okay, let's go back to 100% and make our brush a little bit smaller for some of these sections here. A little cast shadow going on there. All right, let's do the mug. We're going to say the light's off right now, so that's why the shadow's coming from this angle, not from straight down. All right, I think we'll have that be in shadow as well. The thing with shadow, like I said, go check out Lee's class for light and shadow, because there's just a million calculations going on in your head. when you're doing this, and you're just always thinking like, where, if this, what you're doing is you're like a computer doing like ray tracing. You have to train yourself to understand like the best way to, how light would behave and the best way it would behave in these situations. So it's not easy, and don't get frustrated if you're not good at it, because this does take time to learn. It just takes practice, honestly. And it's one of those things I don't think you can, boom, just know it. There's a little bit of just kind of learning as you go on some of this. All right, is that all the shadow that I need? Okay, I think that's good. And now we're gonna do our gradient shadow. And I just want to take away this because I don't want our gradient to go on that. So now just the table's done. Okay, let's see here. We're just gonna add a little bit of gradient in places. And that just gives a little bit more interestingness to it. Okay, you can see when I turn it off and turn it on, how it just adds a little bit more realism to it. And then let's go in there and help it out in a few places. All these places where I want it just be a little bit darker is where I'm adding this. Okay, that looks good. Oh, let's do like right there as well. Let's erase. I want that gradient to be a little more gradual. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now let's go in and add some texture to some of the stuff and highlights as well. This table's going to have some scuffs on it, probably, just from being jostled during space battles and things. Maybe a little bit of abrasions and scratches on parts of it in places like this. I just want it to look a little bit older than what it is. Okay, now we're going to add highlights. And I think there should be a highlight just along the edge of this right here. Just where it's hitting the light. Oh, definitely right here. And we're going to erase this out just a little bit like that. There we go. And we'll give it a little bit of highlight right there and right there. And some shine to some of this metal here. Highlights are like the best part. Because you could just really make something sing Like makes everything pop out a little bit. But you can go too far on it. Okay, did we get everything? Everything have a highlight? Oh, we've got to do a highlight down here. If we did one up there, we got to do it down here too. Oh, hey, Walter. Dog just walked in. Figured out how to open doors. He's like one of those raptors in Jurassic Park. And so I actually had to change some of our doorknobs to be not the like handle kind, but the the kind that it's just like a round knob instead of a handle. Because he was figuring it out. He knew what was going on. Okay, let's get a little bit of shadow in some of these spots. You upset, Walter? He gets upset every time my wife leaves, and she just left. And then he always wants to play. So as soon as I'm done with this, I'm probably gonna go play with him. All right, I think we're done. I think we've got ourselves a really good setup here. I'm seeing one thing I want to add to it, and that is, I'm just going to highlight this. I just think we should have a little bit of a shine right there. And right there too. Yeah, that makes it. I guess if we're going to do that, we got to do it over here too. There we go. Okay. Let's call it good. Let's call it good. We'll call that done. All right. Your final assignment in this class, your exercise is going to be to do just what I did. Take your lamp that you've designed, and now I want you to do a chair. I want you to do a table. I want you to do some sort of thing to drink from and some sort of book or reading material. An ensemble that all goes together. Use your lamp as like the anchor prop to set the design tone for everything. You can have them match, you can have them harmonize, you can have contrast, but I want you to think all those design principles that we've talked about, everything that we've talked about in designing props, and make a nice ensemble of props that will go in your portfolio, and then use this to go on and create more props so you can flesh out your portfolio even more. All right, that's it for this course. Thanks for joining me, and good luck on your pathway through building a great portfolio. Hope to see you in another course. Bye.